Hey guys, today I'm going to explain the different types of numbers and the classification system that all mathematicians use. But first of all, why do we classify numbers into different categories? Well, we use it to try to stay as organized and specific as we can. You can kind of think of it like a home address. Giving the street name of where you live to a delivery driver will be a lot more helpful than just giving the name of the country. The more specific we are with our vocabulary, the more accurate we can be at helping our reader understand what we mean. The first group of numbers we're going to look at are known as the natural numbers. These numbers are most likely the first numbers that you actually ever learned. I like to remember them as the counting numbers. The first number in the sequence is always going to be 1, meaning that 0 isn't included. In addition to this, all of these numbers are always going to be positive, and there's no limit on how big they can get. As long as they are positive, it won't matter the size of the number. And lastly, they always have to be whole numbers, meaning that there's never going to be any decimals involved. Natural numbers are the most specific and basic form of all the numbers. The next group of numbers we're going to look at are known as the whole numbers. The only difference between the natural numbers and the whole numbers is that 0 is now included. Other than that, all of the other properties that natural numbers have will apply to the whole numbers. The way that I remember the whole numbers is that I picture the first number in the sequence looking like a whole. Even though it's spelled differently, it just helps me remember the difference between the whole and the natural numbers, since they're so similar. This classification group includes all of the natural numbers, all of the whole numbers, and now it includes all of the negative whole numbers as well. This group is known as the integers. So unlike the natural and whole numbers, all of the negative numbers are going to be included as well. So it doesn't really matter if they're negative or positive. Another distinctive property is that they all have to be whole, just like the numbers that are up here. And as I've already said, 0 is going to be included into the integer category. The rational number category includes all of the other types of numbers that we've already spoken about, along with decimals and fractions. There are conditions to which decimals and fractions can be included though. The rule is that the numerator and denominator of the fraction, or the fraction form of the decimal, have to be integers. If you remember from the last category, integers are all the numbers that are inside of this teal circle. So they can be negative or positive, and they always have to be whole. An example of this is 1/2. The numbers 1 and 2 are both integers, meaning that it's a rational number. If you want to be more specific with your vocabulary, you can say that the numbers 1 and 2 are natural numbers. That's a good application of what we've already learned. It's a little bit more difficult to tell if a decimal is rational, so what I would suggest doing is convert it into its fraction form and then try out the rule on the fraction. Unlike all of the other categories we've already talked about, irrational numbers have their own separate section away and don't fall under the rational heading. So remember when I was talking about the rational section? The criteria for a rational number is that it has to be able to fit into an integer over integer fraction. Well, what about the numbers that can't fit into this ratio? These numbers are known as irrational numbers. You may not be familiar with the square root of 2 or pi or e, but all you need to know is these are just characters that stand for really long decimals that cannot fit into this format. Finally, the last numbers we're going to look at are known as the imaginary numbers. Kind of like the irrational numbers, the imaginary numbers are completely separate from what's inside the gold circle. If you haven't heard of imaginary numbers before, it might be strange to think about. I'll be making a video soon to explain what imaginary numbers are more. A very brief summary of what imaginary numbers are is that if you ever see a number followed by I, or just I by itself, know that that number is going to be imaginary. And there you go. Now you know all of the different types of numbers. Just as a recap, all of the numbers in red are known as natural numbers. All of the numbers in blue are known as whole numbers. All of the numbers in teal are known as integers. All of the numbers in gold are known as rational. All of the numbers in purple are known as irrational. And all of the numbers in green are known as imaginary.